So same place. We had moved to a different house, but still in Fort Hood, Texas. And I was in the backyard with my sister. My sister is 22 months older, and we were on the seesaw, and she had to go to the bathroom. And so she got up to go to the bathroom, and I got off the seesaw because she got off the seesaw. And my mom, she was rushing to go to the bathroom because, you know, as little kids do, you sometimes wait right to the last minute. And my mom came to the sliding glass door just as this bird, this brown bird, landed on my head from, it came from the right side of me up in the tree and landed on my head. Well, what happened to me was before that happened, while I was on the seesaw, I had a visual or a vision of something that was happening in the future. And I saw this, I saw myself getting off the seesaw and this bird landing on my head, and then a brief conversation that I had with my mom. And that actually came to fruition within about 3 or 4 minutes later. And so it kind of freaked me out because here I am, I was 3, and again, didn't have the language capability or the understanding to say, this just happened to me, what is this? And I remember asking myself questions and asking the spirit, who was my guardian angel on the other side, did I make that bird land on my head? Do I have powers like Snow White? Because I love Snow White. That movie had come out. I was watching it. It was my favorite movie at the time. I loved animals, and I thought, and I asked, am I a princess like Snow White? Can I talk to animals? Because I would be in the backyard, and I would have these conversations in my head with animals, you know, nature or whatever, whether it was a roly-poly or anything else. And very sensitive to energy. I could feel the emotions of the trees or the grass or even some of the nature that was around me and people and things like that. I am an empath, for people who don't know what that is. I don't know if we want to get into that, but on this occasion, the bird landed on my head, and I got scared, because part of the reason I was scared was because, I mean, what are you going to do? You're 3 and you have a bird that just sits on your head. It sat there for a good 2 to 3 minutes before I freaked out enough and moved. I was in shock, and part of it was, what do I do? I've got a bird on my head. And then it was me asking questions. Why is there a bird in my head? And did I do something to make this bird land on my head? And my mom said, it's okay. It just thinks your hair is a nest. And from then on out, the adversary told me I had nest hair. So, as in the dark side, the dark spirit's on the other side. You have nest hair. Do you have nest hair? So,
anyway, and that's something that you carried with you? Like, have you thought about that experience often throughout your life as you've...
Oh, gosh. Oh, all the time. You know, it used to be with me several times a month. Anytime I would hear this demon or unclean spirit, I'd be doing my hair, and my hair would be frizzy, and I'd hear this dark voice from the other side going, it's because you have nest hair. You know, it's like I could never let it go. It's like, and it was an outside voice. It wasn't me saying I had nest hair. It was like some guy's voice going, you have nest hair.
Yeah.
Like, leave me alone, you jerk.
Well, your experience is interesting for many reasons, but for one reason, you did see the future, and it happened before you. So there was a fulfillment of something that you saw, a projection,
right,
if you will. And so I wanted to hone in on that. I recall you sharing another experience with me. I believe your family moved to Washington, and I remember you used to take Sunday drives with your family. I wondered if you could go
right,
into that a little bit and what you saw there.
Well, that was one that kind of freaked me out for a while, because I was just waking up to my gifts that age, trying to figure out what I was experiencing. We would take these Sunday drives, and every time we take the Sunday drive, my dad liked to go through these forested areas on these 2-lane highways. 1-lane highway, one going one direction, one the other side. We were stationed at Fort Lewis, Washington. For those of you who don't know where that is, it's near Tacoma or in Tacoma, and not too far from Seattle, and so not too far from Mount St. Helens. And we would drive, and I would have these visions, these visuals of Mount St. Helens. It was like in real time. But it wasn't happening, and then they would show me different scenes. I say they as in the spirit realm, and I would see Mount St. Helens erupting.
Real time. This is while you're driving by. You see ash going in the air, and
okay. Yeah, and I'm sitting in my car, and you know, my dad is like almost 6'7". He's a big guy. military guy, very loving, but very strong. And my mom, and my parents, I remember they would want us to, like, because it's Sunday and they're trying to manage, several kids, and they would want us to, like, sing songs in the car and stuff. And I remember just being like, I I can't sing right now because this is happening to me and I can't tell anybody what's going on. And I would cry because in some cases when we would drive on certain roads, I would see certain people and there would be ash on the ground and other things. And so it scared me. And I didn't know what to do with that. I didn't know what was happening. I could tell the difference in the energy. I could tell that this was a different dimension type thing going on, right? So the energy, the picture in my mind's eye and in front of me didn't look exactly like that solid, massive mountain. Anyway, and then later on, while we still lived in Washington, Mount St. Helens actually erupted.
So let's hone in on this. I want to get into your mind and your heart, your youthful thought activity. Did you know at this point that you were having unusual or unique experiences?
Not completely. I would talk to my angels and they would say, you're not like other little girls. Some people have these gifts, but most people don't. And they'd say, it's nothing to be afraid of, because they can read that energy too. And so I would be thinking something, and then I was always close to God's spirit. And so I would talk to God, and I would get scared on those occasions, or in bed at night when I could feel a demon or unclean spirit near me, or I would see one, and I would talk to God. And so it brought my relationship, my heart energy close to him. And I always believed in God. And I because with what I experienced in the spirit realm, there was no doubt in my mind. I mean, I had some, in my mind, tangible evidence that there is a higher being and that we have guardian angels and things like that. And so I would talk to God, and sometimes I would hear his voice, and sometimes I would hear the Savior's voice, because we have God the Father, and then we have the Savior, Jesus Christ, his son. And I would also sometimes hear, my great grandma or somebody else that was helping me, a guardian angel.
Okay.
And they would kind of calm my fears. But I never talked to if I talked to my parents about this, I don't remember that I did. When I got a little older, 10 and 11, I would talk to my dad and tell him I had dreams, but I never used the word vision or any of that until I was well into my adulthood with my book coming out.
So you're on this drive, you're seeing things that for most people would be really startling and disturbing. And you didn't think to say, Mom, what am I seeing? Why am I seeing ash and explosions and quaking? Did it even cross your mind to vocalize this with family or trusted ones?
I did, and what would happen was I would be asking those questions in my head, and I would get an answer for some of it, and then I would be thinking about telling my mom, and I would actually hear someone say, I would hear the light side say something and the dark side say something. And the light side would say, these are special gifts. It's best that you keep it quiet right now. People won't understand. And the dark side would say, you can't tell anyone this because you're crazy. They're just going to think you're crazy. They started telling me I was crazy at the age of 3.
Wow. And
the darks.
And when the way you just worded that makes me think that this has been an ongoing battle within you ever since then. Is that true?
My whole life. Yes, my whole life.
Can you give more examples of experiences where those two competing voices you've had to wrestle with in your life?
Well, the day I woke up from my near-death experience in 2004 was the most intense day ever, where I was physically assaulted by demons, and they physically grabbed a hold of me, and I called out to God to rescue me, and I had angelic visitor who had guided me through my near-death experience come to my rescue. He came into my hospital room and he just basically said, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. He grabbed a hold of my arm, my shoulder, put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, it's okay. And I heard him say, just look to the light, look to the light, look to the light. And I zoomed into a tunnel. We were in a dark place, and I went from basically outer darkness into the light till the light would break. When I first saw it, it was the size of a pinhead. We went through this tunnel, And I ended up on the other side where loving ancestors greeted me and hugged me and told me it was going to be okay. And that was after quite a wrestle with the dark side in a very physical manner.
I see. So now I have to ask, I know there are many skeptic-minded people out there, and I want to address their interests and concerns as well.